Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Wrap Podcast, the place to catch up on all the regional and national rugby in Wales. You can find us on all the usual social media platforms and message us through there if you want, or you can email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. So all the boring stuff out the way, let's talk rugby. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrap Podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me always is Jamie. Good evening, Jamie. How are you?
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you.
Jolly good, jolly good. Just the two of us from the normal squad this week. The other two are, I think they've got a hair and makeup appointment, something like that. I see that or the doctors phoned them back about the nasty rash. It's one of those two. It's going to be one of those two. That's all it ever is with those two. So joining them in their place, we're very pleased to welcome Chris Kirwan, who is now. Am I got this right, Chris? Are you the sports editor or are you sports correspondent? Tell us what you do.
Basically, I'm the only sports writer on the Argus now. So I'm basically Whatever happens, I try. I'm usually flitting between Dragons and County, so that's my job now.
Do you do cricket as well?
Well, technically, I suppose if anything happens, but yeah, no, it's I need to have some time off. So
I say I've got a mate that does it locally, and he does like rugby, football, cricket, athletics. He does the whole lot. And you talk to his wife, and she's just like, yeah. Weekends are just, there's no point planning anything. There's no point going anywhere. It's a full on thing when you do it all year round, isn't it? But yeah.
What that says about your mate, I don't know if she's not that bothered.
Yeah. Right. Let's start with drink of the week then, James. Let's see what you've got, mate. Let's line one up. What are you starting with this week, mate?
Well, it won't surprise you to know I've got another Tiny Rebel beer.
Another Tiny Rebel, yeah. There we go.
I know, shock. This one is 505. I love the design on the cans. They're so nice. It's a New England IPA. And I've seen mixed reviews about this beer on YouTube. There are some craft ale experts, I watch quite a lot of these beer reviews on YouTube. And some of them really hated it. Some of them said, oh, it's actually not that bad. It's okay. I'm not going to say I dislike it. It's not my favourite Tiny Rebel beer by any stretch of imagination, but it's not that bad. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
What's it called? 505?
It's 505. It's a New England IPA and it's 6.2%. And you can get this in Sainsbury's.
6.2. We're edging into the danger zone there, Jim. Well,
we're covering the Dragons, so I will need a fair bit of alcohol to get through the season with Phil. Yes.
Well, See, I've been quite traditional all season. And I've gone, I've stuck to the crafty ale bits, and I've tried to cover a lot of, Welsh beers. And then I thought, no, this week I'm just going to, after your blue raspberry shit from last week, I thought this week I would go for...
Lovely beer that was, thank you.
Marshmallow flavoured cider.
Ooh.
Now, I'll be honest, I was looking at it and I was going... I can't put that in my basket. I can't. So I had to hide it until I got to the till, and then put it in somewhere, and then put something on top of it just so nobody would see that I'm buying marshmallow flavored cider. But
do you like it?
I got to admit, it's quite nice. It's.
See, you can't live. You got to try these funky flavors. It's lovely.
It's sickly sweet. I couldn't spend the whole night on it. And I think it's going to take a long time to get through it. But yeah, it reminds me of like Mad Dog 2020 back in the day, where look at me, I got my proper beer.
It's a blast from the past, bloody hell. Yeah. Oh dear.
Right.
I'm glad you like it. Sounds nice. I'll try that.
Marshmallow cider.
I'll try anything though, aren't I? So I don't care. Yeah. I've seen some of the stuff that you've tried, mate, and that's probably a step. That's a calm one for you, but it is. Isn't it? That's
yeah. Right. So before we go into Jamie's news desk, I just want to share something with everyone, right? So my boy's 20th birthday on Saturday night. I was in Swansea Wine Street, which was a hard enough task as it was. I'm walking down Wine Street, and you got all these people handing out flyers. Come to my club. Hey man, yeah, this is a cool place to come. Come here, you're funky, yeah. Every single one of them turned their back on me as I walked to them. So I've got my Hawaiian shirt on. I've got a nice trendy pair of shorts. They all turned their backs. They couldn't even look me in the face and go, sorry, mate, now you're too old. They just turned their backs and looked elsewhere rather than tell me I'm too old to go in their club. I had to walk the whole length of Wine Street with people going, nah, you're not up for it, mate. It was funny because I'd try and get one off them. I'd try and chase them down as they were turning around, going, can I have a flyer? Can I have a flyer? And one guy kind of held it out, and he obviously didn't see me approaching. He held out his flyer. And then as I went to take it, he kind of looked me up and down like that, and then snatched his flyer back and turned away and walked off. So, yeah.
I think they knew he was a Turk. That's what it must have been. They knew you were from Clefley, and that's why they just turned their back. Because that's the only explanation I can think. They must have sussed you out.
Yeah. My boy was pissing himself. He thought it was hilarious. He's going, can we go back up? Let's walk back up. So anyway, that was my funny bit from the week. So let's start a new feature, Jen. Jamie's news desk. So this from now on, you're our news bitch. So we're going to do
news correspondent. Thank you.
So
watch out, Chris. I'll be after your job soon.
That's it. It's an interview.
I won't be.
So how
do you do it, Chris? How do you cover county and Dragons? So I got to ask you this: how do you manage to juggle it?
Well, it is tough, but yeah. It's well, which. If county are away at Hartlepool, I'll cover the Dragons.
It's a long Northern trip.
Exactly. No, it's good. I'm lucky. It is still a good job despite the Dragons' results and all that. It's still good fun. So that's why.
Excellent. As long as you enjoy it, that's the main thing in it. Right then, news desk. So we'll have to start with the big news tonight. I mean, it's not really Welsh rugby related, but it is pretty big news. London Irish, I'm afraid, have been suspended from the Gallagher Premiership. They had a deadline today at 4 p.m. for the consortium, the American consortium, to submit funds or prove that they could carry the club forward into next season. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And as a result, they are now the third club within 9 months to be suspended from the English Premiership. And what a sad, sorry state of affairs I mean, we know there's problems in Welsh rugby, but my goodness, in England, to have 3 clubs going like that inside 9 months, that's just crazy, isn't it? That's nuts.
And it's one of those things that when Worcester went, it was that was meant to be like the last of it, wouldn't it? And they did this big check. Is everybody okay? Yeah. And so for another one to go after they've done that check mid-season, something's definitely wrong in England, which sounds kind of rich coming from a Welsh rugby supporter. When you're getting criticised on the state of your game by Welsh rugby supporters, you know you're in a lot of stuck somewhere. Well, what do you make of it, Chris? What's your take on it?
It's incredibly sad. The thing is, there are a variety of reasons the 3 have gone, haven't there? So it's sort of it's not all just spending money they've not got. There's a bit of I say bit of skullduggery. It's heartbreaking looking at Worcester and what's happened just through your ownership and similar at Wasps. Wasps, they've been in trouble for years, haven't they? Before happening, yeah. But it is it's just incredibly sad to see. Well, the human aspect, natural, isn't it? It's the players, the staff, everyone that goes with it losing their jobs. It's terrible to see. It's naive to think everyone else is immune to the pressures of rugby, and at the same time, I think sometimes rugby has a problem thinking it's a bigger sport than it is in various ways. So it's but as I say, I don't think that was the reason for. Well, it definitely wasn't the reason for Worcester and Wasps' is problems.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's just sad for the supporters, isn't it? I mean, with the players, yeah, it's difficult for them and staff, but they can find employment elsewhere. It won't be easy now because of the market that we're in. Clubs have done their recruitment and salary caps are tightening and what have you. But for the fans, when you've invested and supported the club all your life, and all of a sudden it's suddenly not there anymore, you've got to start right from the very bottom. It's heartbreaking. As much as I complain and moan about the Dragons sometimes, the idea of them not being there, just going, I don't know why I do. Do you know what I mean? It would
don't bring that idea into it again.
Well, it could happen, couldn't it? It could happen. I prepare myself. Who knows? But it's just very, very sad for the supporters and everyone involved. It's pretty grim, isn't it?
Well, at some point in the near future, we'll do a thing on the English Premiership and the URC and the state of the leagues and all of that kind of stuff all mashed together. Because the first thing it does again is, I've seen it already, people shouting for an Anglo-Welsh league and or a UK league and stuff like that, and you're just like, we've been through the churn so much. The last thing we need now is to start messing around with league structures and this, that, and the other, and all of that. But you can see why people say it. You can totally see why people.
And they've been saying it for years, haven't they? People have been saying this for years. They want an Anglo-Welsh league and a British and Irish league. I mean, me personally, I think now in an ideal world, I would love a British and Irish league. Is it going to happen? No, I don't think so. But with all these clubs now going to the wall, it does make you think maybe the Premiership isn't a land of milk and honey because they've got their problems. We as Welsh supporters, we all look to the Gallagher Premier. We think it's a brilliant product, brilliant league, and everything's going to be fine if we join their league. Maybe it's not, And for the URC, it's got its problems, it's got its flaws. It's certainly got its flaws. It is a hodgepodge of a league, but I like the URC. I do.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So what else have we got then, other than the depression that is London Irish?
Well, the other big story from last week was Rhys Carey getting dropped from the Wales squad. And this caused an almighty shitstorm on social media. So Wales released a statement, a lovely, colourful design, a nice graphic. It looked really nice, didn't it? But the wording didn't quite match the graphic, did it? The actual news didn't quite fit in with the colourful, glossy graphic that he was on. So, Wales released him saying he failed to meet individual performance targets. So that was put on all their social media channels. It's not the first time Rhys Carey has been dropped from the Wales squad. We know the way Pivac did it last autumn. And Pivac said that he hadn't quite reached the level of conditioning required to survive in our camps. So it's happened before. Although I don't think it's purely surrounding fitness. I do think there are other factors involved. But I don't know. I just felt with that statement, the way they so released it, it did feel a bit like a public shaming, and I did feel sorry for Rhys Carry. I think he's a terrific player, but clearly there's issues there just around his conditioning, isn't it? And him failing to meet the targets that are being set by the Welsh management. So there's a question for you, Chris. What did you make of the statement that was put out by Wales? Some people said it was very brutal, it was inappropriate, and they should have waited further down the line when he got released with other players. Do you think the WRU handled that well, or do you think this storm in the teacup?
No, I don't think the wording was particularly good at all. I wouldn't have. I don't think many sporting organisations would have done it, but I'm sure there's someone with their reasons for doing it. And I have no idea what the chain of command of that was, but I don't think many people would have done that. I see a lot of merit in people saying that you could make it clear to him that you're not hitting these targets, drop him at the first opportunity in some other way, maybe. But then, no, is there an element of setting an example? But I just think it is conditioning. I don't really see a big problem with Rhys Carry in his performances. That, to me anyway,
he's been good for Cardiff, hasn't he? He's been really consistent.
But that's just my opinion on that. I've not seen what he's come back in. I do. It's a story that you do hear at rugby clubs every season. There will be some Dragons boys coming back next week who, well, I presume there will be some coming back next week, but might have a few. They might be slightly off the target. That's just the way it is. There's always been fat clubs or whatever, things like that. But I just think, firstly, Rhys Carry is a very good player. It's a shame. It's a shame. And I think Wales will probably be weaker without him. But once again, I'm speculating here. Presume they've given him those targets and feel that he's not going to reach their required standards by August. But wording wise, I'm not sure there was any need for it. But there we are.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I did feel a bit of a public shaming almost, and he did think, well, if they're doing this for Rhys Carry, are they going to do this to other players? Did that set the precedent then, where every player you release, you got to make a statement like that? But they probably won't, will they? They'll just put out another statement with a batch of players that's getting released. So I did feel a bit for Rhys, I have to be fair. But I think quite clearly there are some issues there around his conditioning, and whatever he's doing in the Wales camp, they want more from him, don't they?
It was interesting though. It was the last time that PVAC didn't pick him for the autumn. It was Di Young made a point of saying it wasn't conditioning, it was weight, and there's a difference.
That's right.
Weight and conditioning, isn't there? So it's whether if he's not hitting his targets around the field, there is through fitness, then fair enough. But
there was a lot of stats going around, wasn't there, on Twitter about Rhys Carry's stats in URC. They were very impressive, but then you think, well, does that translate to international rugby as well, isn't it? Because international rugby is a different animal. And has he really convinced for Wales, Rhys Carry? I'm not saying he's been poor, but is he really? I'm not sure. But he's still learning his craft.
On the other hand, we're told the South Africans had raised the bar so much in the URC through their packs, and if you're doing good stats in the URC, it's one of those. So
that's a fair point.
And I don't watch Cardiff every game.
No, I try not to either.
But he was certainly he certainly stands out whenever I've seen him. So.
But when you look at the size of some of the South African front rows, none of them are in slimming world. Do you know what I mean? These are big boys. These are. I don't think any of the South African front rows are lighter than any of the Welsh front rows. Do you know what I mean? They're big, hefty boys. So I don't see why we have an issue with putting a guy in the front row, particularly the front row, who's got a bit of bulk about him. So he does his job on the field. He's got a bit of bulk. He's one of the top turnover guys in the URC. He makes the most yards. He's made the most line breaks. For within props, I don't see the problem, but obviously Gatland does, and that's why he's there and we're not. But yeah,
So, and Pivac.
Yeah.
Pivac and Gatland. So that tells you a bit of a story, doesn't it? Two different coaches now saying they're not happy with, his targets and his conditioning, but it's a shame.
Yeah, and I think that is separate from the way it was handled and the way it was spoken about. Definitely. Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay, so that's that then. Let's talk about news from today then. Other news. Scarlets, they've been busy releasing young players. Harry Williams, Griff Evans, and Iestyn Rees all to join Paul Turner's Ampthill. What do you make of that, Lee?
Yeah, I just, we don't learn, Scarlets, we don't learn. When we interviewed Simon Mudrak, he said the biggest weakness that the Scarlets have got is we release young players too early and we let them go off and then we've got to buy them back later. And we're doing it again. And it's not just those three. I mean, Scarlet's scrum half line is stacked. It is stacked right the way down the line. But within the academy, within the senior academy, within junior academy, within players who were just out of academy and gone into senior squads, we're releasing players, and we're not supporting them. We're not actually developing those players. Half those players went to play for Llanelli last year, and me and you could have coached Llanelli better than what was happening last year. Do you know what I mean? It just we aren't giving those some of those players, particularly like Harry Williams and Iestyn Rees. These are good players. These are really, really good quality players. And these are the ones who are making the news. And there's a whole load of other boys that have been released as well, from academy that we're never going to hear about until they pop up in an English club somewhere, and someone goes, "Oh, he's Welsh. Why is he playing in England?" All we're doing right now, and I know it's happening in other academies as well. It's just not as obvious. All we're doing is we're creating a new problem 4 or 5 seasons down the line, where these boys would have been coming through and establishing themselves as senior team players. And we're going to go, well, what's happening now? We're going to get to the next World Cup and we're going to be going, same as we are now, where's those younger players coming through? Why haven't we got younger players coming through? And it's because they're all off playing elsewhere and they're not in Wales and they're not being looked at. So, I wish those players all the best. I think Paul Turner is a fantastic coach. I think Paul Turner is one of the most underrated coaches. He did fantastic at the Dragons, and again,
absolutely did. And he didn't have any resources, and Chris will know this. When Dragons didn't have a pot to piss, didn't have any proper training facilities. He did. Looking back now, he did wonders at the Dragons to be competitive as they were back then.
And playing devil's advocate, though, you're always going to have to release some people. You can't keep everyone on. But they have Judgement calls to make on any player. As you say, it happens at every club, every place. I mean, you'll see lots of English clubs releasing players. You'll see each Welsh club are doing it. They've got to make tough calls a lot of the time. You can't keep everyone on there because then you've just got bloated squads. And to be honest, they do cost money as well. So you add if you just hoard all these people, it becomes unsustainable in itself. So I think you've just got to make tough calls, and you almost lay a challenge down to the player. Say, drop down to there, and we'll keep an eye on you. And and there's nothing wrong in that in a sense. I mean, you see it at many levels. You see, prime example, I suppose, is Coombsy, isn't it? He for whatever reason didn't happen, but then he went to the Premiership, forced his way back in. We've seen it with James Thomas was similar at the Dragons. It's a nature of it, really. The young men, make sure they are ready for that disappointment, I'd say, and helping them with that disappointment, that move, but also telling we'll keep an eye on you, or prove us wrong. As you say, being coached by Tommy Turner it's a pretty good place to do that.
Absolutely. Pro sport is brutal, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's going to be disappointment. Okay, so in other news then, Steph Thomas, who's going to be joining us soon on the pod, he's reported that there's English interest in Alan Wyn-Jones. Bath, Bristol and Gloucester all interested in his services. I'm a little bit confused by this. So, because I was under the impression that he had some time left on his Ospreys contract. I thought he had like another year or so. Or did I get that wrong? Because that was the impression I was under.
You got that wrong. So.
Yeah.
I got that wrong. Clearly, I did that. I honestly thought he did. I thought he had another year or so.
No, he's got a weird contract where it runs from World Cup to World Cup. So his is the last of those contracts apparently, where it runs till after the World Cup. Literally on World Cup final day, the day after, I think they allow 2 days for a flight home after the World Cup final. Was fucking ambitious, if you ask me. But that's when his contract officially ends, apparently. So,
right. Because I must admit, I was at Swansea for when we played the Ospreys, that awful game in Swansea. And when Alan Wynne-Jones went off, it did feel like he was saying goodbye there and then. And he did say that to a mate yesterday. I think this could be it for Alan Wynne-Jones. I know we had Judgement Day to come, but at home, it did feel like it was him signing off. So I don't know. Could you see him in the English Premiership playing for one of those clubs? I'm not so sure. I don't know.
I told you, mate, he's coming Scarlets.
Oh, that would be funny, wouldn't it? Can you imagine if that happened?
Fucking hell, Swansea would set itself alight. It'd be absolute uproar if he came to the Scarlets.
Oh, Welsh Rugby Twitter. I'd have to take a couple of days off work, I think, just to scroll up Welsh Rugby Twitter if that happened. If he sang for the Scarlets, that'd be hilarious, wouldn't it?
It would be hilarious. I mean, if I was John Daniels now, I'd be making the call just to wind people up. Do you know what I mean? It's just I've spoken with Alan Wynne-Jones. We're going to meet up for coffee next week and all of this kind of stuff, just to see what kind of reaction there is. Because I think Osprey would self-implode. It would be worth that Friday afternoon on Twitter just to watch that happen and see what it's like. But yeah,
well, we'll have to keep an eye on that really and see what happens. But well, let's talk about the Drags though, because there is some transfer news regarding the Dragons. We are interested in a South African lock. It's not the one that was reported in Wales Online, the one playing in Japan. I'm not going to say his name because I absolutely butchered it last time. JD something his name is. Dean Slabbert plays for the Pumas in the Currie Cup. Chris, you wrote an article about this. Can you tell us any more about this potential signing?
Yeah, well, just that they've been looking at him for a fairly long while. They identified him as a player they think could add a power to that pack. He's they are a man short there, but they know that they won't be able to have the JD Schickling, I think, was the
Schinderling, I said. So I just knew I'd got it wrong.
Well, I think that's it anyway. But, I'm told, and maybe Steph is better informed than me. I don't know because he doesn't do rumours. He says so. But it's but I think that was never a goer because of just the budget. A player playing in Japan is going to be too much. Whereas this sort of younger players, they feel that they can add, but there'll be a few hurdles to get over first before anything happens. So.
Yeah, and we talked about this on last week's pod. This does open a bit of a can of worms, doesn't it, Chris? Because Cardiff are after a 10. They tried to sign Tiers de Beer, and they've rejected it with WRU. So, and you've seen it already on Twitter. People say, "Welcome the Dragons." If they did sign him, why are they allowed to sign a South African and we're not? It just sort of makes it awkward, doesn't it? Really, this whole WRU clamping down on overseas.
Personally, I don't see why Cardiff can't be allowed to sign a 10 if they see fit. It's one of those, isn't it? They've then got to go through the process of making sure, because like work permit, you need to do all manner of things to say that he's better than we can get here and outline the reasons why and the thinking. The idea that you could just then point to a Welshman playing in the English Championship and say, well, what about him? It's like, oh, Christ. You can't just go down that line of doing it for every position. We've all seen the value of overseas players and what they bring. I appreciate you need to get probably good caliber ones, but we've seen that. Once again, with the Dragons' point of view, we've seen what a good signing someone from Currie Cup / low Super Rugby can provide in Reinhard, Landman, and Brock Harris.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we need them back, I think. Oh dear. Yeah, so that's the news then. That's all done for me. So we can go into the Dragons. Another underwhelming season, but improved. I will say that because it was improved. Yeah, let's get into that, the season review.
Okay. Well, I mean, the season didn't start very well. Let's be honest. An away game in Edinburgh, and a 44-6 Tonkin. But I think the key talking point from that game is what happened after the game. Was it after that game with Dean? It was the first game where Dean Ryan said, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't a great game. From what I remember of it, I think you guys were lucky to get the 2 penalties. That's how I remember it back then. And I think before then,
that was the main thing of this game, Lee. Lucky to get penalties. There was much more going on than that.
Yeah, I know. But do you know what I mean? It just felt like nothing was going your way. You weren't getting the 50-50 calls. There were passes being dropped. And it just, my memory on that game was like, Dragons have shit the bed, James. I just kind of looked at it. I remember looking at that game and going, wow, if that's your first game of your season when you're really up for it, it's going to be a tough season. And then obviously Dean Ryan came out and said what he said after, and your season kind of changed from then on.
Well, we went 6-0 up through those penalties through Hannover, and then it was a scrappy game to begin with, actually, but we got those penalties. And then I think it was 15-6 at half time, something like that. And then the second half, Edinburgh just completely blew us away. It was one of those Dragons-y performances, as Chris is well known now to seeing. Of course, it will be forever known for Dean Ryan's post-match interview to S4C when he said, "We've got supposed talent in this squad, but I don't see it at the moment." And I can remember watching that at home thinking, I think you're done, mate. Because he was throwing his players under the bus. And what annoyed me with that was he was saying, I think we've got, this supposed talent in the squad. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, mate, they're your players. You signed these players. This was your 3rd year in charge. You're the guy that brought most of these players in. So what you're saying now, the talent that you signed is supposed, like you don't see it now. The players you signed, it was really, really bizarre interview, and I thought he's in trouble here. So yeah, you remember that, Chris, don't you? The infamous Dean Ryan. Did you think the same as me? That
yes, saying that's never good, even though there was merit in what he was actually saying.
It wasn't good enough.
We've seen performances like that where it's like you're meant to be Wales players, and this is what's happening. But it was, I mean, let's be honest, it was a carry on from the previous year. It wasn't a happy camp, and that's why it was happening. And it's just one of those, wasn't it? Where it was in many ways it's probably the perfect start, wasn't it? Because it just got it just, the situation was going to happen probably at some stage in the autumn was brought forward a little bit. An expensive mistake, keeping Dean on, but it was one of those. I think it run its course. That was clear.
But there were sort of rumblings that he signed a new contract, wasn't it, in the off season, and there was a lot of sort of rumblings about that. But the Dragons never actually announced it, did they? So it was all a bit suspect, wasn't it? Like, he signed this new deal. There was no official announcement. Like you said, it was an unhappy camp. We know that certain places like Tavis Noyle, we saw that interview with Jonathan when he came out and said, there's too many Englishmen in the camp, or something stupid it was. We know Elliot D had a big bust up with him, and it wasn't a happy camp, and it just felt at that moment that was it. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. But
the contract was done before the summer, but so it was it was in the previous season. As you say, it wasn't announced, but
But when you consider the season that we've just been through, the whole season in Wales, and you're like, that's how it started. The writing was on the wall after the first game, the first 80 minutes, and boom, it was all kicking off from there. And normally that would have been, a story of the season. And then just now when you look back on it, it's just another little mark through the season that's been Welsh rugby this year. But so the second game, now, should we skip over the second game, James? It was a bit of an iffy one,
Well, this is the game I want to talk about all night, if I may, because this was one of my favourite ever Dragons games. It was brilliant. Dragons 23, Munster 17. Who saw this coming? It was just unbelievable, wasn't it? Oh, I loved it. And to be fair to Munster, they didn't do bad since then, did they? They did recover quite well after this because they went on to win the URC. Yeah, and the Dragons should definitely take credit for their title win because losing to us gave them the kick up the backside they needed, and we spurred them on to the URC title. So I definitely think Dragons played a part in that. It was fantastic, wasn't it, Chris? What was your memories of this? You was there covering it. I know it wasn't a full house of Ronnie Parade. It was a Sunday, wasn't it? I think it was, but it was a brilliant game, wasn't it? For me, this was the game where Rio Dyer really made his name.
It was just, I guess that it showed the frustration probably of Dean Ryan that he couldn't get that out of his players, the same players, and the difference in performance was ridiculous. That was a really aggressive, in-your-face performance against Munster. They sort of went toe-to-toe with them. And it was just that summed that first block of the season up, really, because they were getting into teams. I think there's no coincidence that Will Rowlands was there at the heart of it all, putting in big performances. And that sort of summed them up. It did take a hell of a score by Rio Dyer to win it, but it was a great atmosphere. And really, really pleased for Di Flanagan as well, who sort of had a bit of a mad week, but they certainly played for him there. So.
I always remember at the start of the game, because the game was live on TV, and Lauren Jenkins interviewed Di Flanagan. And Lauren Jenkins is a brilliant broadcaster, I'm a big fan of his, but she's putting Di on the spot. She's really grilling him, saying what's going on with Dean Ryan. He's like, I can't comment. He just kept saying, I can't comment. And Lauren's like, well, the supporters really need to know, Di, what's going on with this club. They'll really push him. He's like, I can't. He can't say anything. Like, she's grilling him. And he's like, I can't comment. And I felt a bit sorry for him because I thought, he shouldn't be in that position, should he? I felt David Buttress should have come out and actually said something about it. I felt it's a little bit unfair to put, Di in the 5-9 like that. I did feel a bit sorry for him, to be honest. But but it was a brilliant win, wasn't it? And like Chris said, just what a performance. So from what we saw in Edinburgh to this, and it was a good win. Dragons did play well in that game. This wasn't a fluky win. I mean, they were 15-3 up early on in the game, and Munster came back 17-15. They scored a couple of quick fire tries today after the break, but then that moment of magic from Rio Dyer. Rio was so good in this game. I mean, I know he had a yellow card for a high hit on Sebo, but my God, he ran rings around Simon Sebo. I was in the business stand watching him, and he made Simon Sebo look like a slow old man. He just running rings around him. He was absolutely brilliant. And that was the game that caught the Welsh management side. But there's a couple of things I really like to mention, to take out from this game. So when they beat Munster, it was their first win at Ronnie Parade since April 2021, right? And it was their first win in front of fans since February 2020, when they beat the Cheetahs. So it was a very long time the fans had to wait to see a home win, because the season before under Dean Ryan, we didn't see a home win. We went all season without the home win, which is disgraceful, even by Dragon standards. That's just not good enough. When you consider we're paying our membership fees, and we just couldn't see a single home win. It just felt like a huge weight off the shoulders. It was a brilliant game, brilliant occasion. Yeah, loved it. And that's the highlight, the high mark of the Dragon season. Because after that, it's a couple of nice moments, but it's pretty downhill, really.
But watching that game as a neutral, it was a really good competitive game. I thought the Dragons should have put it to bed before Rio Dyer's try. I think there was a couple of kind of half chances, and you just think, if if they were all singing or dancing, that sticks, and he's in at a corner or whatever it was. But they never stopped. They never looked like that. They never looked happy with not being in front when they went behind, and you just always felt something was going to happen, something was going to come. It just felt like their day. Sometimes you just get the feeling that this is their day, and that felt like their day. And yeah, I don't remember seeing any Welsh supporter on Twitter or on Facebook or anywhere criticizing the Dragons after that.
That makes a change.
Yeah, exactly. Cardiff fans shut up. Obviously there were a lot of Scarlets boys that have gone to Dragons, so it was there was a little bit of that from Scarlets, and Ospreys were very complimentary as well. So yeah, I think it was a good day kind of all round for Welsh rugby, not just the Dragons on that day. It felt like a really good day for everyone, that one. So
it was brilliant.
So do you want to move on with that now, or do you want to go through it again now, Jamie, and just kind of make it a moment and just remind yourself of 23-17 a few more times before we delve into the rest of the season? Or are you happy that we've reached the crest of the wave and then we're happy to kind of sink back down to earth after that now?
Well, look, if it's up to me, I talk about this game all part, but we do have other games to talk about. And of course, I got Chris on as well, so we need to move on.
Go on then. Right. So a narrow loss against the Sharks the week after. And again, I felt Dragons should have won that game. Genuinely did.
Yeah. As Chris will tell you, there were many games throughout the Dragon season, as we'll go over, where they should have won. There was too many near misses. And this is the first one of the near misses that should have been wrapped up. We went up an half time, we were 12-6 ahead. We were looking really good. You knew the Sharks were going to come back into it, and it wasn't a fully loaded Sharks team, but they got big pack. They were big boys. There's quality throughout that team. Will Reed played really well. I think this was the game. Didn't he had a head knock, didn't he, Chris? He had to go to hospital. Is that the game, I think, this one?
He did.
The Sharks, I'm sure it was.
Build to the winner, I think. But unless I remember that wrong. But no, I think this was a near miss one they probably could have won. But I would say with this one, this was 6-day turnaround from Munster.
That's right, yeah.
Top of my head, I'm pretty sure it was. Against a big old side. So I think this was one where I'd argue they did back up the performance there. This was another one where you thought, well, fair play, because it wasn't just they had a reaction to the Ryan departure in Edinburgh and then dropped off. I think for most of this block, the first block, they were pretty good. With the usual Dragons regrets in there. I think that's when they weren't great, were they? And then they dropped off a bit, but no, they were pretty good for the whole of this first block. I think that's what provided the hope that there was more to come. But
I just remember with this game, because I'm sat sort of on the Bisley, the halfway line, and I could see Angus O'Brien, and I could see that pass was going to get intercepted. You could just see it coming, and it did get intercepted, and it ended up being the Sharks' winning score. And he played so well during that game as well. He's been brilliant, really, Chris, for the Dragons arriving back from the Scarlets. But it was just one of those what-if moments, I'm afraid, and there's a few of them as we look on to the season, unfortunately. But yeah, as Chris said, it was a good performance, but the one that got away for me, I think, because that would have been brilliant. Imagine beating the Sharks after beating Munster. That would have just been huge confidence boost.
Well, for me, like I said, the performance was there. And when you look at it from a coach's point of view, Di Flanagan must have been quite happy that, the performance is coming. We're performing well. And like you say, there might have been sometimes you can't account for a referee giving a penalty and you lose by 1 point or whatever. But if the performance is there, you're happy. So then the week after, you go to Benetton and you get stuffed again. And
Well, that was the game where, for me, Dyflan made his first sort of mistake because he makes 10 changes from the team that faced the Sharks. And I said on Twitter at the time, the Dragons are not Leinster. You can't get away with making that many changes. Dragons just haven't got enough quality and depth to do that. And especially against Benetton, a fully loaded Benetton they were, by the way. It was just disaster. I think it was the game where Rob Evans made his first start. Was awful, quite frankly. I think the props had a really tough time, Chris Coleman, and fair play to Dyflan. He does make the decision to take him off after half time. He does a mess because the scrum has been a shambles, and that's a continuing theme into the season as well, the scrum. But it was also the game where Steph Hughes makes his debut for the Dragons, and he scores as well. And what a signing Steph Hughes has been. Brilliant, isn't he? What a pickup he's proven to be. Excellent. The toss-up between him and Angus O'Brien, I think, for player of the season. But very disappointing. And again, it did feel like a Dragons-y game, didn't it? Just too many mistakes, too many errors, and just, very disappointing.
Well,
this is a common theme throughout the season as well. I'm saying disappointing.
We do get to that bit where, so when we do the normal pod in season, Chris, we kind of do our score predictions at the end of the pod. Jamie's banned us from throwing any kind of positivity at the Dragons, just in case that kind of trips them up and affects the performance. So
they don't need to be tripped up by anyone else. They can trip themselves up. No, this was one that I would once again, devil's advocate. They backed up Munster and the Sharks. Changes need to be made, and I think one as well. I mean, in terms of rattling through this season, I know, but sort of one of Dye's strengths, I would say, he does do a bit of tinkering because you need to keep a squad happy. And by and large, he did that. Although I'm sure some players will disagree, especially that's the tricky part, isn't it, in rugby, when you come to the second half of the campaign, when you've got contract decisions and blah blah blah. But yeah.
So you then come and take a little strollio up the road. So we're into Christmas now. We're into which, round 5, and we're into Christmas. That just seems
we're before the autumn internationals.
Oh, it's got the wrong one. Right, I've gone the wrong one. Phew. I'm thinking, how was it that short? I was looking at it and I'm going Cardiff Dragons. That was Boxing Day. How was that?
No, that was the other one. That was the one with the wind, where they had the wind, and they that was another chance they missed it.
Gordon Bennett. So. I'm not even on the strong stuff tonight, Jim, and
that was the 15th of October when we went to the Cardiff Arms Park, and I've got nothing to say about this game. It's just Cardiff, and it's just another loss because I've just accepted every time we play Cardiff, we just always lose, and I'm bloody sick to the back teeth of it. This ridiculous hoodoo. How many games is it now, Chris? Is it 15 or 16 defeats on the trot?
No, it's ridiculously long, yeah.
It's silly. It's so bloody silly. Skip that one. I'm not interested in that one. I was at a gig anyway, so I wasn't there for that one.
So then we're into Ospreys territory. So
let's talk about this. This is a game I want to talk about.
So I think 25 points for the Ospreys in that game kind of flattered them a little, if I'm honest. I thought you boys were probably good for the 32. I don't think Ospreys are good for the 25. I thought you deserved the winning margin for me should have been more. But it was a cracking game. Not at Christmas. It was a cracking game.
Yeah, this was, in my opinion, I'm not being biased, I think this was the best Welsh derby game of the season. I really enjoyed this, not just because we won, because it was a really entertaining game. What are your thoughts on this one, Chris?
Yeah, no, it's similar to the sort of themes of the whole first block, really. I think it was a good aggressive performance, but they did cliche express themselves, blah blah blah. But yeah, they did play some good rugby as well. They should have won convincingly, but at the same end, they could easily have thrown away a draw. And off the top of my head, I think they're down to 13 at the end, weren't they? And
yes.
The clock was in the red, and the Ospreys kicked twice with the clock in the red, which was, I mean, once was ridiculous. To then do it again, is madness by them. But no, they stood up. It was notable, this one, I think. The Ospreys came a pretty direct one out sort of approach, and they stood up to that by and large. And that was one with Rowlands, sort of Moriarty. I think actually, again, this is going back too long for my memory. I've got covered too many games of this, but top of that, I think there was Beard and Alan Wynne and Rowlands and Carter, and I think Carter was the best lock on the pitch that day. I think he was excellent, Ben Carter. And he's sort of I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he's coming on really, really nicely, Ben Carter. I think he'll have a good few years. I think he's developing physically, he's learning loads, and he's just a really diligent player. So I think sometimes we get excited by others. There are good other young locks out there, but I think Ben Carter's come along quite nicely.
Yeah, completely agree. There were 4 yellow cards in this game. So in the first half, the Ospreys had Morgan Morris and Adam Beard sent off, so they were down to 13. But then the Dragons get the yellow cards at completely the wrong time, didn't they? So Elliot D gets sent off on 74 minutes, and then Sean Lonsdale quickly follows him. So it's the last 6 minutes of the game down to 13. And I remember Jack Walsh, they won a penalty and he kicked it dead, didn't he? And that was a massive, massive moment. And we just about held on for it. But it's a really good game. Another good day of Rodney Parade, when we get those big wins of Rodney Parade. It's just the atmosphere changes. And, when Dragons are playing well, when they're winning, the Rodney Parade is a really good place to be at. It really is. And it was just one of those famous days of Rodney Parade. Really enjoyed it. Good derby. Yeah, enjoyed that one. And we backed it up with a win as well, which is very unlike the Dragons. They very rarely back up a win with another good win. It just doesn't happen at the Dragons.
Helps that Zebra are coming.
If
there's one team that's sort of and they were, I think they were even poor by their standards, and that is rich, I know, saying that, but sort of but the Dragons did a professional job on them. That was one where they blown them out of the water by a criticism would be that if that was a top side, they would have kept the foot down and really battered them in the final quarter.
I agree.
So,
if it was a top team, they could have put 60, 70 on them, and Seabrook were poor. But I do remember, I think the big takeaway for me from this game was Di Richards. He played on the wing and he had a very good game. And I think he got injured then, didn't he, with that try? He dived in the corner and he come off injured. But
he did, but his bad injury was actually when they returned.
South Africa,
wasn't it? Coming to it, but South Africa when he did his hamstring.
Yeah, it was awful. I got to be honest, what I liked about this game, it's a very unusual feeling for me as a long-suffering Dragons fan. So I'm in the stadium watching this, really relaxed, knowing the Dragons can't do anything to fuck it up. It was a very unusual feeling to sit there and not worry about Dragons being Dragons and doing anything silly. It was comfortable, but it was almost too comfortable. It felt weird because Dragons games are not like that for me. It's never comfortable. It's never straightforward. But this was a formality. And Seabrook were poor, but to be fair to Dragons, they did get a professional job done. But as Chris said, if it was a top team, they probably could have put 60, 70 points on it. But it was a bonus point win at home. Fair enough, innit? Job done.
I think the words you're looking for there, James, is confidence. And it's as a Dragons supporter, I think confidence. When you're walking into the gates and you go in there and you go like, is this going to be a nearly 50 points win for us today? That doesn't come very often. I don't
know that feeling.
Yeah,
I never know that feeling. I don't trust the Dragons. I got very little confidence in them because I've been burned too many times. That's the reality. I've been let down so many times, and when I try to be positive about them, I end up just having egg on my face. So it's better for me to go into every game knowing we're going to lose. And most of the time we do, in fairness, don't we? But there we are. That's just life as a Dragons fan.
Well, let's talk
Chris,
about.
I know it's just cheery, isn't it? Cheery chat.
Well, to be honest, I think the season review needs to end now. Let's get the South African tour out of the way. Let's go through those Christmas derbies.
But there hasn't, other than that first game, all of these games so far have been quite close, including these ones in South Africa. Sometimes 7 points for a try can almost kind of distort it a little bit. These are close games. The Dragons have been competitive in all of these games. And I think that's a difference with this season and last season. Like last season, you were losing, but like you said, Jamie, the confidence was battered out of you. Whereas this year, there's been, small sections of each of these games where you think, oh, hang on, there might be something here. Something's going well. And I think that's a difference between the two seasons. So anyway, you went.
I'd agree on that actually, because that's what made the run-in so disappointing. Part some of those games in there, it was getting back towards, getting back to the way at the Ospreys they were so poor. Glasgow in Europe were poor, and that was what's frustrating, was contrasting to much of the season where they did show such spirit, and gave it a go. So.
Yeah, and to be fair, the South Africa tour, there were plenty of positives. Yeah, we didn't win. We weren't expected to. But, I mean, the Stormers game, I don't remember too much about the Lions game, I have to be honest. But the Stormers game, I remember that one because I was in the old arcade in Cardiff with the missus. I don't know if we were at a gig or something, but we ended up being in Cardiff. I was like, can we just watch the Dragons? And she was moaning like that. So let's just watch the Dragons. We'll go there. They're going to lose anyway. I know, but I just want to watch them. And at half-time, we were 28-7 down. We were getting absolutely battered. I was like, oh, drink this, we'll leave. But then in the second half, we scored a couple of quick tries. And hang on a minute, let's just stay now because I want to see how we do. And, we pulled it back to 34-26. And that was a game that could have turned really ugly. And fair play to the Dragons. They come back really well. And try of the season from JJ Hanrahan, a beautiful try. We played some really good, adventurous attacking rugby in that second half. And you could argue the Stormers took their foot off the gas in the second half because it was job done. But I was really pleased with our spirit and how we fought back. And that was a game I was actually really happy with, even though we were well beaten, in our first half. The job was done then. But there were positives to take out of it. That's all I'm looking for in defeat is positives.
Well, what did you make of the games in South Africa then, Chris? Because it's a long old journey. It's not an easy one. You're playing difficult teams in difficult conditions, and I thought they did quite well. What did you think?
Yeah, but by and large, it was an improvement on some sort of South African performances of the past. I think they gave it a good go. They dug deep and showed some spirit. The Stormers, but then there was another big missed opportunity, the Lions European game to finish it off. That was it was a draw that eventually got them through. But if you're to go well in Europe, you need to be winning those games and getting your home draws. And they that was a missed opportunity out there in that game. I would say as well that it's a long old time to be out there on tour in South Africa in such times, because it is quite draining in this league to go away for that amount of time, play 3 games, just the start, going into December as well. So it was, sometimes for professional players, it's not easy. Those of them with families and those sorts of things, it can be quite tough at times to go on those South African tours. So, but no, they seem to stay tight and seem to be pretty reasonable effort. But once again, voice of doom here, but they come back and
no, that's me.
But they came back and they had the biggest balls up of the season, which was Po at home, which was just freezing, and that was one they really should have won. They were poor throughout, but even then they came on strong late, and they should have won. They were in the 22 and just failed to take their chance, and that's when the confidence starts. It's a bit of a spiral that they're not winning those tight games, and that becomes a frustration, and then that leads into the festive period and the Cardiff game, where another one, but that it's sort of those behaviours are already in place, aren't they? You're somehow not winning those tight games, and hence when push comes to shove against Cardiff, you have a nightmare last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean that Poll game you mentioned, Chris, that was awful because I remember Theo Tomkinson, who I do like. I don't think he's had quite the impact that I expected him to have in the first season. He was good in the first block, but he had a real bad game. I remember watching this, and he did knock on, didn't he, at the end near the line, which would have won it. And Poe came down here without a head coach, because let's not forget, he got suspended for attacking the referee. So Poe come down here, nothing really to play for. They didn't play. They had a decent squad. It wasn't anywhere near their full strength. And
that's lively players, but it's just it's not.
It was so bad. And then we got the disappointment of Cardiff. I can't talk about this game. It just makes me so angry. It makes me so angry.
I can't wait till we start doing YouTube stuff, Jay, when people can see your face when we start talking about Cardiff.
I am sick to death. I am sick to death of Dragons shitting the bed against Cardiff, handing victory to them. Not every time, but over the course of this 15-game hoodoo, there have been too many occasions where the Dragons could have and should have won. And this was one of those games. That decision, Chris, you know the one I'm on about, they had the choice of a scrum or a free kick. Why on earth didn't they take the scrum? It was, what was it, the 78, 79? They could have just run the clock down. If they lose the scrum, fair enough, but it all starts from, isn't it? Poor decision, a crucial moment. And then, to be fair to Jared Evans, mind, that was one hell of a touch finder, wasn't it? But I came out to that crowd, I'm not going to lie. I was almost in tears. I was that upset about it because I am sick to death of seeing Dragons cock it up against Cardiff. It's getting heartbreaking now. And it's embarrassing, actually, because we know Cardiff are a decent team, but it's not like playing Leinster or the Stormers. I don't mind losing to Leinster like 20, 30 times because they are Leinster. But when it's Cardiff and you're going toe-to-toe to them, when you're just making the wrong decisions and you're bossing it up, it's heartbreaking as a Dragons fan to keep seeing it, Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah. Would you agree, Chris? Sometimes Jamie goes off on one of these ones, and we just sit there and we put our feet up and put the slippers on and get the hot cocoa. We go, you'll be done in a couple of minutes, and we just go away. But certainly on social media after that game, I remember just seeing so many Dragons fans. Not angry, but I think it's the same as you, James, just disappointed and fed up that there was an opportunity there. Yeah, it was an opportunity there to take it. So, what did you make of it, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think anger is justifiable with these ones because this was in their control to get the win, and they're the frustrating ones. I'm sure Cardiff have regrets about how they played at various times of this game, but the point is Dragons put themselves in the position to win it at the death, and through poor decisions, there was a catalogue of errors in that final period, to the free kick decision going long, then leaving Angus O'Brien isolated, and then failing to have a good crack at getting Jared Evans, probably, yes, it was a brave kick and it comes off, but it's just that even that was they could have had a better crack at keeping that in. But yeah, no, it was it was a poor one, this one.
Yeah, let's move on then, Lee, quickly, please.
Okay, happily.
Oh, does it get any better? I've just seen the next fixture. Actually, we'll skip this one as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, I remember this game as a Scarlet supporter. And we were right in the middle of, we were kind of turning things around. We'd had a couple of decent games in Europe, but all that everyone was talking about Scarlets at this point was how many cards were Scarlets getting in this game, And I was genuinely worried going into that game because I thought Dragons had been playing well. We'd played a couple of weak teams and it was a little bit stuttery. And I think Dragons got the tactics wrong in that game. They came into that game and tried to rough us up. They tried to draw the cards out. They tried to start the niggle and all of that kind of stuff. And if they'd just moved the ball and played the way they've been playing a couple of games before that, they would have quite comfortably taken Scarlets that day, and I'm sure of it. And yeah, I mean, Scarlets did well. We made the most of I think there was a couple of lucky ones there, if I'm honest. But I think that's the game where Carl Maffoni got sent off, wasn't it? That's that one.
Excellent work by Ross Moriarty. Proper wound him up, took off his scrum cap. That was really good work. Gets the job done. And Dragons are headed into half time, 17-16 up. And Muggins Bayer, who went to the game, I'm on the terrace thinking, we got a chance here. This is looking good. 14 men. Looking forward to the second half. Yeah, they lost 33-17.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that one? It couldn't have been that good a work, James, because you lost 33-17.
Well, the second half was I don't know what happened. Maybe Chris can give a better insight, but the second half was just an absolute disaster. They were just clueless, the Dragons. Really, really clueless. Credit to the Scarlets, mind. They recovered well and bounced back. After that disappointing losing, what was a key player for them. But that second half, they were just totally inept and bloody useless, to be quite frank. I don't know what the team talk was at half time, but my goodness, they were so bad. Chris, was you at Parker Scarlets for this one?
I was.
Oh,
yeah, it was. No, they were, as you say, they were poor. They were poor throughout, to be brutally honest. But that was once again another opportunity there. But I think top of my head, we've seen it a few times against the Scarlets where it was their tie game. Just they did a really good job, in fairness to them, once they went down, and they just nailed it in the tight game and just got on top of them. The Dragons were playing as individuals.
Yeah,
that's something with some mad decisions. So it was this was the period where I think confidence was starting to just ebb away because the knock-on effect of the O game, the Cardiff game, then it just sort of this felt like the season was creaking.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because at this point of the season, the Dragon season is going downhill, but contrasted with the Scarlets, they're starting to rise now, and they've had two really good wins in the Challenge Cup. Okay, they played a couple of bum teams, so that's not the point because you beat what's playing in front of you, but their confidence is high. And from December onwards, Scarlets go on a really good run, don't they? They start looking confident and they're winning games, whereas the Dragons is the complete opposite.
And I think confidence is such a key thing for the Dragons that when it's there, I can genuinely see the Dragons being a force. I really can. But building confidence, it's not like you go in the gym and you do a couple of extra reps or you do a couple of extra hours on the pitch or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird thing having that confidence that, how do you build confidence? How do you maintain confidence? How does it keep it there, sort of a thing? And I think when the Dragons crack it, I genuinely think that, they're going to be a really, really tough team to beat. And, but you could say that for everyone, I guess. But but still, 33-17 was good for me.
Moving on, I said.
Moving on. So then you went and played the Bulls of Vodacom City. Again.
All I remember from this game was Dragons being completely outpowered. And we went into half-time only 14-17 down. And I said to my old man next to me, I don't know how we're still in this. Because the balls have been all over us. Our scrum is going backwards at the rate they're not. Those forwards, man, were so huge. They have got a really big pack, the Bulls. And we were just completely overpowered. That's the one big takeaway I had out of this game. I don't know if Chris got any thoughts on it, but do you remember much about this one, Chris?
No, it was similar. It was, it sums up. There's things where Dragons are bringing up on Brodie Cochran, they've got Bismarck Duplessis, and it's the sort of
sums it up, did it? He's done well, mate, Brodie Cochran. He's a really talented young player. I like the look of him.
He did it.
Yes. And then after that, then it's not on your list, but we go out to Poe. And to be fair, that's a bloody good win. Okay, on the one hand, that was nowhere near Poe's best team. They make a whole raft of changes. But any win in France is not to be sniffed at. So, yeah. Did you go out to France to cover that one, Chris? Or was you covering the counties?
No, this isn't a decade or so ago.
Right. Of course, yeah.
I would have been doing that off
the telly
before. When would that have been? It would have been some county game coming up. Was it on a Saturday? I can't even remember now.
Friday night to us. It was a Friday night.
Yes, but
yeah. So that was Dragons' only win, by the way, in Europe. So that was a really important win because that basically guarantees them. Well, it didn't guarantee them, but it meant they had a good chance of getting out to that pool because it wasn't an 18 pool, it was a 16 pool. So they had to finish. It was a top 4, I can't remember, but anyway, that was the only win in Europe, and that basically gave them a good chance of qualifying. So yeah, really important win that was. And then we move on to the Lions in Ystrad. I couldn't go to this game, but a European game in Ystrad, I mean, that just blows the mind, doesn't it? I do remember Dragons being absolutely awful in our first half, so bad. But to be fair, there was a game, another one, Chris, that got away from the Dragons. And I remember Leon Brown making his comeback and doing really well off the bench, carried really hard, scrummaged well. But yeah, it was the one that got away from him in the end, Chris, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was just they were awful for 45 minutes. Then got into it. Being honest, it was just an odd day playing in Ystrad and everything. I think had that been Rodney Parade, I think they win that game. But there we are. That's all lifts and buts.
Yeah.
It comes to something though that it's too cold to play at Rodney Parade, so you'll go to bloody Ystrad, which is just the coldest place in Wales. You can stand on top of Snowdonia and still be warmer than bloody Ystrad.
This is absolute nonsense. Tredegar is beating that all day. I covered a game at Ebervale, played at Tredegar, I think. I'm trying to think. A cup game, and it was so cold there. So it was that's the coldest I've been. So,
well, of all the coldest games I've watched, I watched a game in Ystrad at the start of the season. It was a pre-season warm-up, and it was sunny. I was in shorts and t-shirt and sunglasses, and it was naffing freezing. I had to go back to the car and get my coat from the boot because it was so cold there.
You basically just described the back of the other stand. I mean, Jamie's on about Bisley. I mean, he's obviously living the high life over there, isn't he? But the other stand of Rugby Parade is freezing at the back of there. So sometimes they're all getting sunburnt over there while it's freezing over the other side.
So anyway, then you come down to earth with a bump, with the visit of Glasgow Warriors, and this wasn't a close game on the on the sheet. It's 28-42, but there were times in that game where Dragons more than matched Glasgow, and Glasgow ended up.
No, I'm not even that. I'm not.
This is getting into my spirit now. No. Yes.
This was one where I think it's you get rugby games like this where they got a bonus point for 4 tries at the end, but it's not one where it wasn't a close. Yeah, they showed some spirit to get one at the end, but this was Glasgow that weren't. This wasn't a great Glasgow at this time of the year, and I think this wasn't a great performance from my point of view. I think this felt like things were on the slide a bit at this time.
See,
Glasgow had some players released as well from the Scottish camp. It was around about the Six Nations time. The prep. I know Fraser Brown got released. I think he had man of the match as well. Fraser Brown is a really good player. But yeah, as Chris said, this was not a good performance by Dragons, and it looks convincing on the scoreboard. But Glasgow were pretty dominant. In fairness, this is a very forgettable game. I don't have any real takeaways for this at all.
So I think you boys do yourself down, because there was certainly parts of that game. You're scoring 28 points against a side that has gone on to, fourth in the table. Did they make the European Cup final? I think they did, didn't they? Do you know what I mean?
They're a good team. They're a good team. Yeah, but
and you've put 28 points against them, and there were certainly times in that game where I thought, I thought you were matching them. But we'll move on, and we'll talk about you boys getting a kick in off Leinster.
Hang on a minute. You say about me being too down. I want to. No, you say that. This wasn't that bad a performance, and we would have kept it under 40 had Jordan Williams been able to tackle, because he misses that tackle on Tector. No, we played all right in this game. We actually played all right. I do remember some Leinster fans saying to me that we played well, and the scoreboard didn't necessarily justify the game. Rodri Williams had a really good game in this one. I do remember that. But yeah, it's one of those ones where it doesn't look good on the scoreboard, the same as the Ulster game we'll talk about later. But actually, from this game, they were positives. See, I can't be positive about the Dragons.
It's that 6% alcohol, mate. That's what it is. So let's move on to a game that, again, certainly on the scoreboard. So I don't remember much about this, and I'll be honest, but 22-20 loss at home to Connacht.
Yeah. So this is one of those coulda, shoulda, woulda games. Dragons go down to 14 men in the first half. It was a high hit by Matthew Screech. And I do remember Dragons fans losing their shit on social media, saying, the bloody game's gone soft, that wasn't a red. It was a red. It was a red card. He hit him high, it was head. It was a red. Had to go. No issue with that. But Dragons could have won at the end. They could have won. And I remember this game, this was where Ashton Hewitt makes a really good break. And he's got two men on the outside. And he decides to go it for himself instead of passing, completely butchers it when he gets held up over the line. And I said to you on the pod, if he passes it out wide, that's a try, and Dragons win the game. It's just it's those missed opportunities that we talk about throughout this season. Chris, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, no, some that well there is this wasn't great. These are the frustrating games. I just don't think they were hitting the same standards in this period. I think, and as you alluded to, I think confidence is the thing. They were butchered chances. So yeah.
Let's talk about the Ospreys game and then Judgement Day, and because we'll skip over the Ulster one, but Ospreys.
I do not want to talk about Glasgow either in the Challenge Cup. I do not want to talk about that, because I haven't watched the full game. I was on holiday at the time. I've only seen the highlights. I got zero intention of watching that game in full at all, quite frankly.
Well, it was a 37-18 loss to Ospreys. It was a 40-19 loss to Ulster. But then it was a win over the Scarlets at Judgement Day. So how do you sum up the season on that, Chris? I mean, is it frustrating? Is it nearly there? Is it... do you know what I mean? How do you sum up that season?
There are various times. So I think some of the games earlier that we were talking about, that was, you've got to put them in the context of the chaos that was happening off field, especially around the Leinster time when Jack Dixon's getting injured. There were tough times there, but then they came back from that post Six Nations period, and the Ospreys game was the lead up to the Glasgow European game, and it was such a they were poor. They were poor in the Ospreys game. It was just life
discipline, wasn't it?
And the frustration from my point of view was that there was so much good that they'd been doing for much of the season, and it was just getting lost. You were going, well, I can see they're making. They are getting better, but if you put in performances like that, the perception doesn't change, does it? And I think that's where I'm pleased that they beat the Scarlets at the end, because it doesn't take away the frustration of the season, but at least it gives some ends on a high for the players and shows them what this is the levels we've got to be hitting, and it also shows the level of improvement they need to consistently hit to be more of a challenge next season when the other Welsh clubs are going to come back towards them, but they've still got to win those games. So those Cardiff games that are tight, when the Scarlets game, when you've presented an opportunity against red card, they've got to start nailing those opportunities, and that's where they do actually have a big summer, even though they don't play till October. There's a lot of hard work to be done for them if they're to build on what was a pretty good first season under Guy Flanagan. I'd say, no, that sounds daft because they didn't win many games, but I think from where they were significantly better than the previous season.
Because they only won 2 games, didn't they?
Indeed.
2 in a way. So it is an improvement. It's disappointing, but still statistically an improvement.
They're always gonna have areas of weakness. That's the nature of the budget they've got and the side they are. But I think particularly for people like Jamie, the punters who keep paying their money, they did give them something by and large. But in performances, most of those performances at home were pretty good. Away, there was massive improvement to be made. But at home, they were by and large pretty good. They got stuck in. They did reward the fans, gave them something to cheer. They annoyed the hell out of them still, but they did put some big snarling performances in. And I think that was a step forward.
Yeah, completely agree. I saw a home win, which was something that didn't happen the season before. So for me, that was a bonus. But really appreciate you coming on the pod, Chris, and helping to share my misery of reviewing another underwhelming Dragon season. I know you're busy, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
I see you've got a county season ticket as well now. So
please
don't bring the gloom to them. That would just double my... I can't have them having a scrape relegation while covering the Dragons at the bottom of the URC. That's too much.
Because I've been to a few county games now with my wife, and she's really into it, and it's just a really good atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy going to the Dragons, but I do like county. It offers something a bit different, and they are a good team, county. They're punching well above their weight to that league. And I was at the last game of the season. I mean, we should have beat them. It was a Crew we played, wasn't it? Because we scored a late goal and then they scored straight after the kick-off. I'm like, bloody hell, it's like being at a Dragons game. This is no more disappointment. But they're completely different in fairness.
Well, there's something to beat this going off a tangent here, but with rugby fans, they don't get routine, do they? But if you buy your season ticket there, every other Saturday you're there 3:00. So a lot to be said for that. So.
Chris, thank you very much for your time tonight, mate. It's
no problem at all.
Greatly appreciated, and fingers crossed when Dragons put their run of games together next season and they're sitting on top of the URC, maybe we'll get you back on again. And,
shut up, mate. You're just trolling us now.
We'll discuss your positivity.
I'll leave my diary open.
All the best, mate. Thank you for your time tonight, mate. Much appreciated.
Cheers, both. All right.
Cheers, good.
Bye. Oh, there we are then.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. It's a shame we had to scoop through the last bit, but yeah, it was, how when you look back at the season, right? What do you look at and you go, this is where it went well, and this is where it didn't go well. What do you work on for next season? If you're Dave Flanagan, what do you work on for next season?
I think it's clear the front five has to improve because we had big issues in the scrum. And I looked at the URC website, the stats section. We are ranked 16th out of 16 teams for scrum. But ironically, we're ranked first for our line-out. So, our line-out is a positive, but we saw far too many times the scrum is just too weak. It's not strong enough. When we come up against big packs, particularly those big Irish and South African packs, we really struggle. We have difficulties defending driving lineouts. That was a theme we saw in the Glasgow game. Johnny Matthews scoring like 4 or 5 tries or whatever it was, all from driving lineouts. I mean, it's just things like that. And, it's about converting those narrow losses into tight wins. Because the Dragons are just not used to winning. And I'm not saying that to be funny now, but they need to develop a winning habit. And I do think, like you said, they are a confidence team. I think if they had a couple of good wins in a row, 2 or 3, it would, drive them on to better, and to think, right, lads, this is where we need to be. We've got to keep this going. We've got to keep this consistency. But the problem with the Dragons has been an ongoing theme, no matter who our coach is over the years. Sometimes when the pressure's on, we crumble and we make poor decisions, and then we just fall to pieces. When the game is going away from us, as well. But it's just things like that. I think the mentality has to improve, and we do need to make some signings in the front 5. We desperately need a lock to replace Rowlands. We'll see what happens with South African. We do need another prop. I know Di Flanger's looking at the loose head, but personally, I think we should be looking on the other side. We're going for tight eggs. I think we're more vulnerable that side. But yeah, I mean, who knows next season? Because everyone's going to be on a level playing field, aren't they, with the budgets and everything. And I just think if Dragons learn how to win games and, learn to win them ugly and learn to win them tight, then maybe we could have a decent season. But, this is the Dragons, isn't it? You can't get your hope up because it's the hope that kills you, And I feel like I said, I've been burnt so many times. And John Mulverhill came out, didn't he? This week, because he was coaching the Barbarians against Swansea, and he tipped Dragons to have a very good year, is what he said, to keep an eye on us. And it's like, thing is, we've heard this all before, haven't we? And we've made positive signings, really good signings, but how many times have we seen the Dragons recruit really strongly? But then once the season kicks off, it starts to go downhill, and we're underwhelming, It's a shame, but I don't really know how you turn that around. But winning games, I suppose, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? But and Dice, the thing with Di Flanger, he's a good coach, but he's also young. He's a rookie, isn't he? To use an NFL term, he's a rookie coach. He's learning on the job. Yeah. So I'm hopeful for next season, but we'll see.
I think the key thing with Di Flanagan off season now is, and you've kind of seen it in the Scarlets, where Dwayne Peel has actually put together a strong backroom team that kind of knows him and either worked with him before or works similarly to him. And I think that's the bit that Di Flanagan needs to do now. Definitely forwards coach. I love Mevin. I think he's a great guy, but you need somebody there that's a bit more. You need to bring a different idea to your forwards. You need to bring somebody in that's going to come with different ideas, a new approach, a bit more kind of oomph and enthusiasm or whatever, and maybe a recently retired player. Do you know what I mean? And their first opportunity, just bring something there that's different and innovative. So I think that's where the Dragons actually need to make their signings. They need to make their signings off field, get the coaching right, get the backroom team right, get the fitness right, get the forwards right. Because I think you've got enough players there that can do it. It's just maintaining it, and every single game needs to be, 85 to 90%, and then when you need it, you pull out that last 10% to make sure you get over the line. So.
Yeah, I do agree with you, though, about the coaching, because I was surprised that we kept the exact same coaching team. I do like Meffin, but I do think that he was fortunate maybe to keep his position, considering how the forwards are gone. Dai is doing decent work with the backs, and he's going to have Matt O'Brien in from Newport RFC to work alongside next season, so he can share the load. When you look at the Scarlets, and they look to have a strong coaching ticket now, and then you've got Jared Payne and Vanderberg, who I think is a very good acquisition to go from Lions head coach to come down, work with the Scarlets. If you can inject some steel into the Scarlets pack, I think that's going to be, that's the kind of person we need. We need someone to come in and inject a bit of steel. Because I remember we had one season, I think it was the first season that Dean Rhino was in the second, we brought in Olivier Razam, the French prop. Now, he was a consultant, and he was a scrummaging consultant, and it really helped with our scrum. Our scrum was really improved. So I do think we need someone like that. But we'll just see how it goes. But I do think you're right. I think coaching actually is part of the problem in Wales. And you have got a question at all 4 regions. We talk about the players not being good enough and the pathways. We need to ask ourselves, are the coaches, good enough as well? Are they fit for purpose?
Yeah, no, maybe that's for a bonus pod in the future, my friend. Indeed, because we are done for this evening. We are going to wrap it up there. I've not got any any rugby rumours to go through. I threw my best one out there with Alan Wynne coming over the bridge, and I'm going to keep throwing that one out there just to wind a few Ospreys boys up, just because I can. But yeah, we will. We shall catch up again next week, mate. We shall do Scarlets next week. Fingers crossed. We've got a guest lined up for that one as well. And then we've just got the whole Wales season to do with Steph Thomas after that. And then we might say that's the end of the first season and we start in the second season. Complicated, difficult to know with a pod, but a conversation for another time, my friend. Jay, pleasure Absolutely. As always, mate. And I shall catch up with you again and I shall see you next week.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
All the best, mate. Ta-da. Bye.
Ta-da.
Thank you for listening to the Wrap Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please do rate us and tell your friends, as it really helps us to grow and get better. We'll be back next week with more of the same, and until then, enjoy your rugby.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.